Welcome to the Survivor Fans Podcast. I'm Joanne.
And I'm Stacy. We're here with Hannah and Ken from Survivor Millennials versus Gen X.
Good morning. I have Hannah for you this morning. Ken, we have not been able to locate, so we're continuing with Hannah.
Okay, well, Thank you.
Okay, Hannah, you're on the line.
Wonderful, thank you.
Hi, Hannah. Congratulations on making it to the final three.
Thank you so much. I need to preface all this by saying my voice is a mess. So if you can't understand something I say, please ask me to repeat it.
Okay, tell us how you were chosen to be on Survivor.
So I started watching the show at 14. I started with Cook Islands. I met Ozzy last night at the rap party for Survivor, and I freaked out because I was like, you're one of the characters I watched at 14 and the reason I watched. And so I had watched the show for 10 years, and I wrote my college Common App essay, the one you send out to all the colleges, about how I wanted to play Survivor and why I wanted to play. And I went to Northwestern. And at Northwestern, I took Max Dawson taught a class on Survivor in which he split the class into tribes. And Max was on the show. He played in Worlds Apart. Mm-hmm. And I went to the Worlds Apart premiere party, met one of the casting agents there, and Dawson was very passionate about the fact that he thought I'd be good for the show. So I owe a lot to him and just for being a big old Survivor nerd for a long time.
What did you do to prepare once you found out you were going to be on the show?
Well, one thing I did is I worked out a lot. It's so funny. I couldn't tell any of my friends what was going on. So all I would talk about was the gym. I was like, yeah, today in the gym I lifted this. I just became a total gym rat. I also, a lot of what I had done. I had done a lot of preparation just by being a super fan. I had watched years of Survivor, and then some of the things I did had started years before. I had a lot of social anxiety, and I was like, if I ever want to play Survivor, I got to get over some of this social anxiety. So I made myself get over some. I mean, obviously I had plenty of anxieties left for the island, but I got over some of my anxieties, worked out a lot, did a wilderness course type thing. But yeah, it was a lot more. It was a lot of mental and physical preparation.
So what cover story did you give people for why you were away from home filming?
Oh my goodness. It's funny. I live in LA and people tend to disappear for mysterious projects all the time in LA. So I just sort of was like, oh, I'm working in production because I've baristaed, but I've worked in production for a while. So I just told people that I was PAing on a project or production assisting on a project internationally. But it was so odd. You kind of disappear. You kind of just completely disappear from your life. And I remember coming back and calling my brother, and I was like, what is happening in the world? And this was quite the year to disappear.
Yeah, yes, it was. What was the most difficult question you were asked at Final Tribal there?
Most difficult. I think it's less of a specific question and more that I could really feel that the jury had not seen the game that I was playing. I think that Survivor is such a tricky game. It's just a balance of perception and showing your cards, but not showing it so much that you get your torch snuffed. And I had been playing a game where I kept my cards really close to my chest. I think that, I am goofy and I am quirky, but I also led with that so that I had all this information that was accessible to me. People would trust me and tell me information because I was not showing what my cards were. But I think that I needed to be articulating things more clearly. And I think the hardest part was sort of realizing that people hadn't understood or seen some of the moves that I'd been making or how I'd been maneuvering through the game. And so I was ready to fight for it, and I believe that I did. But I think that was the trickiest thing overall, rather than a specific question.
It was tough for us because we saw you getting questions, and then the answers, it was like it didn't line up watching it. Did it feel like that when you were experiencing it?
No, I think, Final Tribal is multiple hours, like all tribal councils are. And so it's this very long thing. I thought they did a beautiful job. It really was. Adam and I were, I love Adam. I think he's a great winner and a great guy. I think, we really were coming at each other. It played back in my mind how I remembered it, although I remember it a lot longer.
Were there other standout questions that we didn't get to see?
I'm trying to think. Let's see. Not necessarily. I'm trying to think if there were any. Brett was very emotional and passionate up there. He really hadn't seen the game that I'd been playing, and that was clear. He sort of came at me a bit. But I think the questions that were shown were the ones that I remember being stand-up. It's funny, Adam and I were most scared for Zeke's question. We both sort of clenched up when he came up. When he started with that friendly hello, Adam and I, in the middle of a very intense tribal council, burst out laughing because I had talked to Zeke on the island about what sort of tribal questions or final tribal questions he liked. And his favorite, I believe, was Reed in Blood versus Water 2, the sort of kind of biting final tribal council. And so I was very prepared for a harsh question. And then he did get some digs in, but it was so funny. I think that was the standout question for me, at least.
Who did you think had won after the final tribal?
Oh, I knew Adam had won after the final tribal.
Okay.
I saw that the game that I'd played had not been communicated to the jury, and I think again, I think that there are certain moves that I could have made. People whose games were less clear, I could have sat with, but I have to stand by the moves that I made. And a big thing for me was I wanted to get to the end and have played a game that I was proud of and have an argument. I was always playing to win. I'm a super fan. I wouldn't do anything else. You watch that final tribal. I felt that Adam had won, especially, the thing about, a cast that's so close is it's a beautiful thing. It also creates a sort of one group mind of a jury. And I think that the jury, perhaps even walking into final tribal, had their mind made up.
When did you feel you really hit your stride as a player in the game, and how did you accomplish that?
Yes, I think it was actually immediately after the Michaela vote. The Michaela vote was very much a wake-up call for me. That whole day, it's the only vote I got blindsided by, and that whole day there was something in my gut telling me this is off. Brett, what you don't see is the girls were supposed to vote for Sunday and the boys were supposed to vote for Brett, and I swapped the genders of that vote. I changed something. To be blindsided at that tribal council, especially to be blindsided, and Michaela sent home, who was one of the people that saw my game most clearly and I really love and respect. She actually left me a note when I got out of the game telling me that she hopes that I dominated the rest of the game. To be blindsided by that vote really woke me up because I thought, I had a gut feeling about what was going on, and I didn't trust my gut, and I don't want to ever not trust my gut again. And from then on, I made moves and decisions, whether the audience can talk about it for years on social media, I guess, but I made decisions that I believed were the right decisions, and I trusted my gut. And while not every single person on the jury or in the game understood why I was making the move I was making, I always had reasons and logic for why I would make whatever move it was that I was making. And it really was, for me, about learning to trust my gut. And I think that can be moved into my life coming out of the game. But for me, it was that vote that woke me up, and then a desire to trust myself after that.
Well, I just wanted to say you were awesome in that last challenge against Ken.
Oh my goodness, thank you. I think half of getting close to winning or winning a Survivor challenge is believing you can do it. And we needed to beat David, and it was such an intense one, and I don't know that I could have given that sort of final challenge performance on day one of the game. Gosh, it was so intense. The wind was insane. This is such a tricky challenge, and we had wind, and we had pressure, and I felt calm and focused, and it was crazy watching that back.
How did Adam end up getting credit for voting David out?
Yeah, I think it's tricky. I had been working Ken for a while. What you don't see is starting a week or two before, I knew that Ken was key to my game, and that just simply turning on Ken was not going to do it. I knew that Ken was someone I thought I could have a pretty good argument against at the end, and I also felt like, what you don't see about Ken is he would go on for hours and hours about trust and loyalty, so I knew that if I was going to separate Ken and David, it was going to have to be more subtle and more about relationship building. The trick with Ken is Ken always has to feel like he's making the decisions. And Dave had been teaching me about how Ken worked, and I was using a lot of what he was teaching me to kind of try to create some wedge between them, and then finally having that wedge pay off at the end. Again, it's about communicating what you're doing. I think if you have no sort of clear proof of what you've done, then, it's hard to tell that to a jury. Adam did a good job of whether or not he was succeeding in votes, seeming passionate and articulate. And, Adam failed at putting together a lot of votes, but he always led with being a strategic dude. And I think that sort of perception allowed someone like Chris to think that Adam had done that.
When Adam played his idol for you, why didn't that really count for him?
Listen, I got some slack because people were a little upset that I, wasn't thanking Adam. Of course I thanked Adam for playing his idol, but I think the key in that night was Will, and here's why. Not only did Will flip, great. We didn't need him to flip because we had the idol. But because Will had flipped, we knew where the numbers were, where the votes were going a little bit more. I mean, Will was so key. Adam told me after he would have never brought his idol to tribal council, but Ken decided to test Will or whatever. So Adam and Dad brought his idol, and then Will had pretended like he was writing my name in the booth, and Adam played his idol. I think that I think it was wonderful. And it always feels great to have an idol played for you. It means you've built a strong foundation with an ally. But I think the reason Adam doesn't get as much credit for that is because I think it was an unnecessary idol play.
Was there anything that you wish had been aired about you that didn't make it on TV?
I'm really happy with a lot of what was shown. I think that, I'm thankful that I got to narrate a lot of my story in regards to anxiety, in regards to the moves I was making. I think I'm lucky in that I get to narrate a lot of it. I think there's so much you're not seeing, and so much of I wish people could understand that I had been really trying to build a relationship with each different person. I wanted to be whatever a person wanted me to be. If they thought I was their project, I would let them think I was their project. If I was their weird little sister, I'd be their weird little sister. And I think that a lot of that was very intentional, and I may not have been able to articulate that as well on the show, but yeah, I'm very thankful, especially when it came to my anxiety stuff, that the show didn't let other people be the voice of narrating that.
How has your view of yourself and your view of Survivor changed after this?
My goodness. Well, I guess I'll start with the easy one, which is Survivor. It's amazing. I've loved the show since I was 14. I wrote, like I said, an essay about wanting to play. But to live in the world of the show, it almost makes the show itself feel like just a highlights reel. Like what you see is a highlights reel of what happened. So to get to be immersed in it and see how real everything is. I lost 22 pounds on the show. I slept outside for 39 days. I got to meet Jeff Probst. So to really live in the world of the show was incredible. But my view of myself, I think I came out of the show a bolder version of myself. I think that I learned that if you can believe, it sounds so corny, but if you can believe, in yourself as having the ability to be successful and to be smart and to get things done, then that's how you do that, because that's how you begin to convince others that that's true. I think we all doubt ourselves, and I think that coming face to face with doubt and anxiety and pushing through it was the biggest challenge, but the most rewarding.
What's next for you?
Oh man, I have just so many things I want to do. I really want to be a television writer, and I really want to pursue things creatively. I've been writing entertainment, journalism, sketch comedy at Upright Citizens Brigade, and I really want to take the sort of boldness and ability to conquer things that feel impossible. A lot of things in my life, creatively or work-wise, feel like these impossible things. Everybody wants to do these things. But I think if I can take this mentality that I learned, which is go after them anyways and believe that you can be a person that can do that, if I can approach the things that I'm passionate about with that mentality, I'm excited to see what happens if I can do that.
Well, Hannah, thank you for sharing with us today, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to speak to you.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
likewise.
you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.